Welcome to the space between. Normally when we talk about the space between, we're talking about the space between separation and divorce and all the things that we don't know, that our clients don't know. And we get pretty raw about it. And I'm excited about the episodes that we have coming up. But this episode is a different kind of space between. This episode is about Haley Amico. Haley is an attorney. She's been an attorney with our practice since she graduated law school. We sought her out and stalked her until she agreed to come practice law with us. Haley Amico is going from a family law practitioner in our Union County office to running her own location in our newest office location in Raleigh. Sodoma Law Raleigh is days away from opening, and Haley Amico is going to be at the helm. And so this is a different kind of space between, because we get to talk to her before the doors open. We get to talk to her about her practice, about her life, about her personal and professional journey. And so it's exciting for me, and I know it's exciting for her, and I can't wait to ask her lots of questions about the changes ahead. So, Haley, thanks for being here.
I'm so thrilled to be here. Thank you for asking me.
What are you feeling? What are you feeling about this transition from just being responsible for your own caseload to running Sodoma Law Raleigh?
So that's a great question, and it's perfect that we're here on the space between, because that's exactly where I am in my life. I'm in the space between living in two different cities and practicing law in two different cities. I'm also in the space between my career of sort of leveling up to the next phase. I've been primarily focused on my casework and my clients for the last 7 years. Now I'm in this space between transitioning to being a leader and a role model for others, and mentoring and guiding other attorneys and our other staff. So it's just a whirlwind, a dream come true. I'm truly thrilled and excited and nervous and scared and all of the things, but it's really great.
Okay, softball questions. Tell us like where you're from. I mean, I know the answer to these questions, but I know the people who listen want to know where you're from. I know that when we met, you wore a charm around your neck. Do you remember?
Gosh, yes, I do.
So I wear my butterfly around my neck, and I've had it on my neck since, oh my gosh, I always look at people's charms that they wear around their necks because they're always so identifying, Yes. There's always a reason that you pick when you're a girl. There's always a reason you pick the charm you wear. Yes. I think I've been wearing this butterfly around my neck since 2012. It is 2025 now. My grandmother wore it. She's on my wall over there. My grandmother wore it around her neck for probably 40 years. And now my mom wears one that's a different color stone, but we have all, so it's so meaningful. Like when I never take it off, it's always on. You can tell when I gain weight because it gets tighter.
That's the giveaway.
It's the giveaway, yeah. When I'm thin, like it's just hanging. Anyway, so do you remember that you wore this charm around your neck?
I do. I used to wear, it was a necklace with 3 hearts on it. It kind of represented my family. My mom gave it to me. I never took it off, and it broke. Oh. And because I wore it and nonstop. So now I have a different charm on. I love the story you told, because this charm is a little horseshoe, and it was my husband's grandmother's. Oh. And they gave it to me because I'm from Texas. I'm from Houston, Texas, born and raised with horses. And they know that about me, and they love that about me now. And we actually got the chance to travel to Nebraska, sort of as a family reunion of sorts for him, and we rode horses together, and so they let me have this charm now that she's no longer with us. But it signifies a lot to me about family, and it's one of the reasons that this Raleigh move is so important to me, is that it's going to get me closer to family. So that's why I'm wearing the charm now. Grant's grandmother's horseshoe. And
do you think horseshoes are good luck?
I do. I also think horses are magical, and their souls are free, and so that's what it sort of signifies to me too: freedom and expression and growth. So there's a lot of meanings behind the charm I wear now.
Oh, yay! Do you think that your interest in, like, your love for family is what drew you to family law? The answer can be no, but I'm so curious because we all have different ways, like all of our journeys are so different on why we find ourselves in family law. And of all the attorneys and humans that I've interviewed over the last 17 years of running this, it's almost 17 years of running this practice, like one of my least favorite responses on why family law is when people say, because I really like to argue. That's like my least favorite.
Yeah.
Or my parents got divorced. And I'm like, no, it's deeper than that. Like that just was an opening. So why family law? Do you think that, and the answer can be no, but like, do you think your love of family is part of what drew you to family law? What did draw you to family law?
Yes, maybe it's not what drew me to family law because I wasn't really sure. I think a lot of attorneys can relate to this right when they step out of law school. Maybe they don't know what field they want to practice in because law school doesn't necessarily prepare you for that, to pick the type of law you want to practice and start, you start to learn those nuances of that area of law in law school. So I wasn't sure exactly where I was going to end up. I don't think I was drawn to family law or sure about family law until I started working in it and, had my first case. I do think, like a lot of lawyers, I like to argue. I like to win. I like to be right about things.
That's
okay?
not what she said in her interview 7 years ago.
Correct. I know, I'm a team player. I don't argue about anything. No, ask my husband. I like to be right. I like to win things. But then when I got into family law, I thought, okay, is this the right realm for me? Because I don't want necessarily to take every single client that I have to court. The courtroom or fighting might not necessarily be what my client and their family needs.
Right.
So I really started to, put into perspective how I can help clients in this role. Because, okay, yes, there's fighting and winning and being right and arguing. There's that. It sort of then translates to, once you learn that you're good at that skill, arguing and speaking up for yourself, sort of translates to, well, I only want to do this for other people now because it's not as fulfilling when I have to argue, for myself, but arguing and helping someone else in, using this tool that I was just born with or that I've, crafted over time, feels good. And it feels in family law almost like the least I can do. I mean, it feels very much like, I jokingly say sort of boots on the ground, like everybody can say I want to help people, but what does that really mean? I have sat with my clients' kids while they were interviewed by DSS. I have gone to my clients' homes and helped them inventory their belongings. Like I have been there to just be there for my client in a human being way. And so that's really what made me stay, and that's really what drew me to this type of work, is that I really feel like I'm doing the bare minimum and actually making a big difference in somebody's day-to-day. And then I do a lot more legally speaking. I'm not doing the bare minimum in my cases, but I think the bare minimum, just being a human being, comes naturally to me. And so that's what drew me to family law. One client I'll never forget about, and this is really what speaks to me about family law, is I feel like she sort of became part of my family during the process. Every now and then she'll drop by the office and bring me lemon poppy seed bread, homemade loaves of lemon poppy seed bread or pumpkin bread. She found out my husband is a big pumpkin bread fan, so she would trade off between lemon poppy seed and pumpkin. But she gave me a little scrunchie with sharks on it because she thought I was a shark, and her husband did too.
Oh, that's funny.
And I keep it with me all the time. I have it downstairs in my purse. I keep it with me all the time. It's just...
I got a bag of dicks once.
Oh.
I mean, am I allowed to say that? Somebody sent me a bag of dicks.
It's your podcast.
What?
You say whatever you want.
I've received a birdhouse. I don't know why, but we got a birdhouse once. We got an unmarked bag of dicks. An opposing party was... My stories are so not sweet.
Oh, that's great.
Look at your stories are like, hail to the Haley.
Lemon poppy seed
yes.
bread. Yeah.
I think that means that I won and they were pissed.
I think so too.
Yeah, and
that's a win.
Yes, I still have the bag of dicks in my drawer over here just to remind myself that I actually, once really pissed somebody off, and that makes me a winner.
I love that. I love that. Such a good reminder. I look at that scrunchie with the sharks on it and think, I love that that's the impression that I left. And I think every case requires something different, but that's what that case required. And it was a great experience. I still have a good relationship with that client, and I hear from her from time to time. And when she brings me lemon poppy seed bread, she brings me 2 loaves, one for my husband Grant and one for me that I can get a bite of, every now and then, because otherwise it will be gone.
I mean, seriously, it means so much, because I had we're talking over a decade ago. I represented a mom, and she said to me at the end of her case, she said, "I am so sorry that the only version of me that you ever got to see was the one that was in crises." She was an executive. She was so kind, but that was the only version I ever got to see of her, is that version. And so after that, she would send me holiday cards every year, and I got to watch her children grow up. And it means so much. Like, I love what you said about every case requires something different. Like in that case, that was a hard case. There were hard facts. We did exactly what we needed to do in that case in order to be successful for her and for her children. But that is not the same thing we would do for another case. Right. So, I love that you remind me of that, sometimes, sorry. I love that you remind me of that. It's good. It's good. That is something you learn over time. That is not something that when you come out of law school, you inherently know.
No, certainly I was going to say I learned that from you, and I learned that from Penny Hefner, my other mentor here, to be creative and fearless. That's one of our core values at the firm, is to be creative and pivot, and one thing that you did for one case won't work for the next case.
When you first joined our practice, was it you that I took to the daycare?
Yes.
Tell me about your perspective of that, because we hardly knew each other.
Right.
And I called you one day, or emailed or texted and said, "Hey, let's go to lunch."
I was sitting at my desk. It's probably my 3rd day at the firm. I'm struggling.
Did I come across scary?
Yes. Scary, no. Intimidating, yes. You kind of casually walked by the office I was working in and said, "Hey, do you want to grab lunch?" And I certainly was never going to say no to that. This is my opportunity. Let's take it. And so we went and had just the best conversation ever. I feel like nothing about work or law school even came up, which was really great, just getting to know you. And then, you said, "Hey, do you have a few more minutes?" I said, "My time is yours. Wherever you're going, I'm going." And so you took me down the street to a daycare. And I remember this was 2019, so I'm thinking, you can't just walk into a daycare. You don't know these people, they don't know you. You can't just walk into this daycare. They're not going to let us in. And sure enough, the person who opened the door for us knew you by first name. "Nicole, you're here. Welcome. Come on in. Who's this?" And I thought, oh, okay, I just need to sit back and learn, today. You started just pointing things out to me. This little folder on this door where the artwork goes, this little grouping right here where there are a bunch of car seats, things like that. And I remember thinking, okay, yeah, this is nice. She's pointing these things out, but I really wasn't sure where this was going. And then you said, I want you to think about these things, because if you represent a parent, a mom or a dad, and they are going to do their exchanges at the daycare, and one parent has the car seat, where should the other parent expect the car seat to be? Should they expect to be picking up the car seat, or do they have them? Who gets to take home the artwork that the child got to create? So it really got me thinking about things from a whole different perspective. It was a lot of information that I hadn't thought about before, all those little details I hadn't thought about before. And that was when it was clear to me, okay, your job is about more than just typing words on a page. Your job is more than just doing legal research and regurgitating the law to your client. It's about thinking about the things that they won't. It's about having their back on things that slip their mind. I like to think about my caseload and how I practice as a team. And I do that, it's sort of from the ground up. My caseload, my staff, we're a team, we work as a team. And then my clients and we work as a team. You know, I'm their biggest cheerleader and advocate and teammate and support. And that's one of the many things I learned that day. And it was great because I really thought, I mean, Nicole has so many better things to do right now than take me down the street to a daycare and just get me thinking about things. And then that turned into my first real, you know, piece of writing that I did to represent the type of attorney I was going to be. I mean, it all started then, and I don't know that maybe you did, you know, you're the master of all things, so maybe you thought about and you knew where this would end up, but I certainly didn't. Not that day when I'm like, where are we at and what are we doing here? And I left that day with a totally different perspective.
That like makes my heart so full. Being a family law attorney is such a bigger responsibility than just representing your client in court. And, you know, since my own divorce, the lessons are, you know, the lessons I have learned and the things that I wish I could go back and prepare my clients better for, which is kind of the reason why I wrote the book. There were all these things that I didn't know and that my clients weren't telling me. And what a disservice you do to a client, you know, if you there are always going to be things that you can't capture. There are always going to be things. There are going to be gaps. There are going to be changes that you didn't anticipate. But like, to the extent you can, you know, close those gaps for them while they're experiencing that crisis, I just, you know, I feel it's such a great responsibility, and when you choose, and it's not for everyone, so I'm just so proud of you.
Well, thank you.
So proud of you.
Thank you.
I am curious, every location of Sodoma Law has a vibe, like it has a personality. Sodoma Law Union does not feel like Sodoma Law at our Charlotte office. It's got a distinct vibe. The same can be said for our Greenville office or, you know, Belmont. Like, you are going to be the 7th office. And so do you know what you want your vibe to be?
I definitely, I mean, I want to take bits and pieces of, you know, the vibes that you've curated here. I want it to be a space that's warm, that invokes confidence, that invokes collaboration. I mean, I think that's kind of a vibe that does sort of exist across all of our offices. It doesn't feel stuffy and, you know, cold and entertaining. It's warm and inviting and safe. And that's what I want for Raleigh as well. I think that speaks to the environment in Raleigh, the legal environment in Raleigh. So far, what I've come to know about it is that it is extremely collaborative. It is extremely welcoming.
Is that the vibe you got yesterday when we interviewed an attorney yesterday to come join our practice in Raleigh to practice with Haley, and that was not the vibe I got. I did not get a collaborative vibe, so I'm so curious
Yes.
what that's going to feel like.
So that was an interesting experience, and you know, I would agree that that person that we spoke to maybe wasn't as collaborative as the other people I've met. What I can say is I've met several attorneys that have welcomed me and other associates at our firm to come and shadow her in court, who has introduced us to sitting judges and clerks. I've met several retired judges from the Wake County area who have introduced me to people at Legal Aid, and you know, just a huge sort of, it seemed very welcoming to me thus far. And even though maybe that the person we interviewed wasn't a good fit, I could still see them being friendly and collaborative, you know, if we're in a case against each other. It has felt very warm and inviting, at least the headway that I've made, and learning people and that type of community, or that community in Raleigh, is that it's collaborative and welcoming. It's really inspiring too. I mean, to be in Raleigh, kind of right by the Capitol, the state Capitol, the Supreme Court of North Carolina, the Court of Appeals. I mean, it's all, you know this, I'm telling you this as if you didn't pick the space.
The space is amazing. I'm so
right
happy.
There. In all of that, it's so legally exciting and inspiring. I mean, honestly, it's we couldn't have found a better space, honestly, if we curated it and picked it ourselves.
Okay, you brought up something interesting, something that happened not long ago here at our office. The relationships that exist between family law professionals. On social, you might see that I'm friends with an attorney who's on the other side of one of my cases. And sometimes that when clients see that we're friends, and I should put friends in quotes, because it might not be that we're actually friends, but it might be that we follow each other on social.
Right.
The concern is that you're not advocating as strongly, or you feel like there might be an alignment. It's a very untrusting feeling that the client has when they see that there is some sort of relationship between you and opposing counsel. Have you had that experience?
I have.
How have you handled that?
So I think, number one, it boils down to trust. There has to be a trusting relationship between you and your client. And so sometimes I'll have a conversation with my client to say, okay, let's take a step back and let's make sure, first and foremost, that there's trust here. You have to trust that even though I have a working relationship with someone, that I work for you. I'm team you now. And so I also think that it's a good sign of professionalism if you can, get in somebody's face in the courtroom, or figuratively, or
or
really,
literally,
or literally, whatever you need. Again, every case needs something different. Yeah. So if there's a time and a place, I think, for that. I think you're doing your client a disservice if you can't set aside that confrontational approach, if you can't set the emotional side of things aside, because your client gets to be the emotional one. It's their emotions, it's their feelings, it's their life. So sometimes, again, a case calls for that. A case calls for that aggressive bulldog, pit bull, fight. Sometimes it doesn't. And I think you're doing your client a disservice if you can't set that aside. You can't have a friendly or amicable conversation with the other side. I think it's a benefit most of the time. And so I explain that to my clients too. I say, I think it's going to help you if I can have a pretty frank discussion and say, okay, what is it? What's the holdup with your client, or what's the issue here that we can't resolve? I think that's a benefit to the client.
Do you represent mostly men or women? And I haven't done the count in a while, but so I might not even know the answer. I don't know the answer.
I don't know down to the number. I think I would, just off the top of my head, maybe women, but I think I have a pretty good mix of both. And, sometimes I really enjoy representing either side,
It's definitely perspective.
Definitely perspective, definitely different. How I might speak to my male client might be different than how I might speak to a female client. Based on, and doesn't even really have to do with gender or sex. It's really that person, that specific person, and what they need, and how they like to be spoken to, and how they like to talk to their person, to their attorney. So I don't think I represent more men than women, or vice versa. Maybe more women than men, but I don't think it's overwhelmingly more. I really enjoy representing both sides.
Firm-wide, it used to be that we were almost exactly even between men and women from a representation perspective. But I haven't done that count in a while, so I'm curious.
I'd be curious. Yeah, just across all of our attorneys.
You get to, in essence, create this environment with you in leadership. You get to create this environment. And so leadership is not management. Leadership is the opportunity to inspire others, among other definitions, right? And so, not all of that is always natural. There are things that become much harder. Oh, and I could talk about this for forever, but is there an area that you're like, this is my biggest opportunity for growth? This is the area that I want to challenge myself in, because this is uncomfortable. And when you are uncomfortable, that is where there is growth.
Oh, yes. I definitely think, I spoke earlier about how I'm sort of expanding or going to the next phase in my career, both professionally and personally. So far, I've been able to just focus on casework, my clients and that current need. I think definitely the most challenging part now is going to be balancing that. Now I'm not just an advocate for clients, I'm an advocate for my coworkers and my staff members, making sure they have what they need, advocating for better culture and work environment for them. I mean, I think that's definitely going to be the hardest part. And I think advocating comes naturally, but then also having the tough conversations, I think, is going to be hard. Or my area where I'm going to grow, and that sort of opportunity is there for me, because that's a hard one for me. I like to please people. Okay, I'm an only child. I want to distract from anything that's not going perfectly in your mind. So I want to just pretend like everything's okay. Don't look back here.
Is that an only child thing?
I think it is. Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely. Want to make sure that you don't need anything else. I can make everybody happy, and yes, I definitely think that's an only child trait. But so that's going to be tough. I don't want to disappoint people, and I don't want to hurt people's feelings. And so I think it's about learning how my mentor did it for me and how you did it for me, which is, empowering someone. I'm giving you a tip, or I'm giving you suggestions or feedback. It's not meant to bring you down. It's the opposite. It's meant to build you up. So I think with practice, I will be, much better at that. But I think it's just about that's an opportunity for me to really grow, is to learn how to have those tough conversations.
And when you have, family law is one of those areas of practice that does, sometimes result in burnout. We don't have a lot of turnover at our practice, but when we do, I can name 3 lawyers who changed their practice area from family law to non-family law, because there is a high rate of burnout, because you're dealing with really complex emotional matters that belong to someone else, but it's hard not to take them on. You have to be really skilled at being able to separate, compartmentalize, and so I'm going to say, in the spirit of taking care of others, how would you coach someone through avoiding burnout, and how are you preparing yourself to avoid burnout?
Oh, great question. I think the biggest thing you can do is set expectations. Set expectations for yourself, set expectations for the people that are relying on you for a response or for work or anything like that. I think setting expectations. Boundaries comes along with that. I'm not great at boundaries just yet. But I think, everybody is different, and everybody's boundaries will be different. So you have to figure out what works for you. And then I also think having a team, having a team of people that you can lean on. You can't pour from an empty cup. So you have to know where your limitation is, and you have to be able to recognize, are you giving your best self? Are you putting your best foot forward? Because if not, you need and deserve the break. You need the time. I heard a new term this year that I like, compassion fatigue. I had not heard of compassion fatigue, but it makes total sense. When you're pouring from your cup into someone else's cup constantly, providing that compassion for other people, which this job you have to have, you start to lack compassion for yourself and your partners at home, your family. So you've got to remember, if your cup is empty and you've been pouring into other people's cups all day, what's left for you? What's left for the people that matter to you? My mentor, Penny, when I was starting to approach that feeling of, I'm not sure if I can keep doing this, or why do people do this? How do people do this? She said, you don't have any pictures of your family on your desk. Put some pictures of your why on your desk. Remind yourself of your why throughout the day. That will help fill your cup back up. That will remind you why you need to take breaks, and why you need to lean on and delegate and share and be a team, with your coworkers. So that's the advice I would give, to my associate attorneys and my other coworkers is, you've got to set expectations, you've got to set that boundary, and you've got to realize and recognize that you are also important, and what you need is also important.
That's also very good advice to give to a client who's experiencing separation and divorce.
Their why?
Their why. That they too can't pour from an empty cup. And, that change can be so overwhelming sometimes. And, and sort of another, lens is, what are you fighting about? What are you fighting for? Is that really going to get you to the place where you want to be?
Right.
What's your why?
And I think you can really help your clients in that way because they're going through so much. And so there's a million things on their mind. So it's hard to sort of sift through, what can I control? What can't I control? What should I handle? What can I give Haley to handle? Should I fight with him about that, or should Haley fight with him about that? So there are some ways where you can help guide your client and say, you can't pour from this empty cup, so go fill your cup and allow me to handle some things, take some things off of your plate, have your back on this or that. I think that's a super important lesson for them too.
One of the things I always do when I start a consult, when I have a parent in front of me, is ask them for a picture of their children. Do you do that?
I do. Yep.
Why do you
Learned
do
it
that?
from you.
Oh, did you learn it from me?
I did.
I have some good ideas. I'm probably not alone in that,
I always keep a little notepad. I don't have it here, and I feel like I'm reaching for it.
Why do you do it?
I like to have faces to names.
Other than to make sure they're not recording you.
Right. Right. Hand me your phone. Let me see what's going on there. So I think it's just a personal connection moment for me and for that client. I'm also just a faces to names type person. It helps me sort of remember you, remember, what's driving you in all of this, remember your priorities. And when I say your, I mean my clients. I also just love looking at pictures and seeing people's families. So I always love kind of seeing people's why. I think that's a little, just a personal little connection that I can make. And then it's not just that child is just a name on a piece of paper with a birth date that follows. It's, okay, I know who that is. That's a person I know now because I've seen their face. They're in my brain now.
What do you wish you knew earlier in your career?
Oh, gosh.
What advice would you give your, 23-year-old self?
Oh, gosh. That you can't please everyone and that you can't fix everything. I tried to just do the next right thing. Just do the next right choice.
What's one word you would use to describe your leadership style? And one word that would describe your demeanor in the courtroom?
Ooh, that's a great question. Empowering, I think, is the word to describe my leadership style. And I think that's been passed down from other very empowering leaders that I've had. So I just want to keep on passing that knowledge down and being or doing it in an empowering way.
And what's one word that would you or that someone else would use to describe your demeanor in the courtroom?
Fierce. That's how I would describe my
You're a little small stature. Fierce, huh?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't back down. I'm not intimidated by the bully, that. No, I love it all. I love the confrontation of it. I'm feisty and fierce and very outspoken. And so, yeah, I definitely would describe my courtroom, Haley, as very fierce.
In what ways do you feel like we can support this next generation of leaders, this next generation of family law practitioners, the ones that are going to follow you?
I think so. I definitely think mentorship and guidance. That's what I got here, and I think that's what everybody deserves. I can't imagine not having this space or not having landed here at Sodoma Law right after law school. I think mentorship, far and above anything else that we could provide, is the most important thing. Guidance, passing down your experience and knowledge. I mean, I think that's absolutely what we can do. And then advocating for a good culture, good firm culture. I definitely think that can get overlooked oftentimes, especially in a business, because you think it's not personal, it's just business. People come in, they do their work, they leave. But my goodness, it's so much more than that. And honestly, I think that we can create cultures that are supportive for younger or new attorneys in their growth and in their creating their caseload and teaching them to be the next advocates. I mean, I think that that's advocating for good working environments and their mental health and avoiding that potential burnout, or, you know, I think that's all super important for the next step or for the next generation.
I am always starting meetings with quotes. I write mantras and life lessons down on everything, even my bathroom walls at home. It is full. The bathroom wall, it started as a joke, but the bathroom wall in my house is full of handwritten quotes used with a permanent marker.
I like that.
It is fantastic. It's like my own little art room. What is the quote or mantra or mindset that gets you through the toughest moments?
I am also a mantra person, or a speak it into existence, manifesting. You know, I'm always attaching myself onto a phrase or even a song. You know, I'll come up with a song of the year or a song of the moment. Lately, one that has been ringing so true to me is everything is going to be okay in the end. If it's not okay, then it's not the end. And to me, it's not saying everything will be perfect. Everything will be wrapped up in a nice, neat present, and it will be perfect and exactly what you want. But it will be okay. You will be okay. We will be okay. Everything will be okay. And if you're not okay, then we're not there yet. It's not over. It's not the end.